Exposed. An incredible Marine and K-9 discover the shocking truth behind a boy's heartbreaking plea. Jake Turner leaned against the wall of his dimly lit office, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and old regrets. The small town of Maplewood felt heavier today. The weight of the economy pressed down like a vice, squeezing out any hope he had left. At 38, he was a shadow of the idealistic Marine who once fought for justice. His private investigator business was failing, and instead of tracking down criminals, he found himself chasing after lost pets. One lead turned out to be a missing K-9 named Max. He pictured the dog as he might have been, loyal, strong, a companion. Yet the case was too trivial in the grand scheme of things, a notch below what he once did. A faint voice nagged at him, reminding him of the honor he once held. In some other life, finding Max would have meant something. Now? He was just trying to make rent. Ethan appeared at his door, his 10-year-old frame small against the backdrop of the worn-out office. With dirt-streaked cheeks and desperate eyes, he spoke. "Sir, my dog, he's missing." That plea ignited something deep within Jake, a flicker of something he thought was long extinguished. Memories of sacrifice, of protecting those unable to protect themselves, washed over him. But so did the fear of failure. Could he, a washed-up ex-Marine, still protect anyone? As they began the search, crawling through the neglected backyards and abandoned lots of Maplewood, a painful truth nestled in Jake's chest. Ethan's laughter should have glittered in the sun, and yet the shadows of despair loomed over them both. The boy's backstory emerged through whispers, a legacy of a proud ancestral home now threatened by the insatiable greed of a local corporation. Jake felt the machinery of injustice grinding beneath their feet, and he froze, torn between protecting the boy and confronting a system that had left him powerless. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension grew like a storm cloud, swirling doubts creeping back into Jake's mind. He began to question if he was merely dragging Ethan deeper into danger with each step. The path to Max crisscrossed further into the murky depths of betrayal linked to the very fabric of the town. Dark memories of his own childhood, a home once filled with safety now teetering on the edge of destruction, came to life. Should he risk everything? To what end? The boy's unwavering trust in him only amplified the mounting pressure. Each discovery tore at Jake's conscience as he was forced to face his own demons. How could he protect Ethan when he had failed to shield his own family from shadows lurking in the past? The stakes grew as they uncovered the pawns moved by corporate greed, but a betrayal lingered on the edge, waiting to strike, leaving Jake questioning his own worth. Suddenly, Jake felt himself at a crossroads, the air thick with tension. Their bond was growing, forged from a shared sense of urgency and desperation. Yet, in the chilling breath of uncertainty, he knew this battle was only beginning. Would he rise as the protector he'd once aspired to be, or would he falter, submerged in a world where greed crushed the innocent? The echoes of their journey pressed upon him, demanding a choice that could unravel everything before they could strike back. Jake's mind raced as he turned the corner into what used to be the heart of Maplewood, thoughts colliding like high-speed trains. Ethan walked beside him, a tenacious pulse of hope and innocence in the face of despair. Their search for Max could easily be a futile endeavor, yet here they were, entangled in a web of corporate greed and betrayal that hung over the town like a thick fog. The urgency of the boy's need pressed against Jake like a weight, as he grappled with a haunting sense of duty, to protect both Ethan and the fragments of justice that still flickered in the dying town. Each step they took felt heavier, not from exhaustion, but from the residual pressure of responsibility. Jake's training as a Marine resurfaced in moments of instinctual strength. He saw shadows creeping, threats emerging where children should be playing. Every glance at Ethan's eager face, a mixture of trust and worry, compounded his inner turmoil. This boy believed in him, despite everything he questioned about his own abilities. Distraction came in the form of a rusted signpost, guiding them toward a vacant lot that had long ceased to be a neighborhood playground. Instead, it had become a testament to neglect. Remnants of swing sets and slides stood like ghosts against a backdrop of an encroaching industrial complex. The realization that the fate of this town, and the dog they sought, was entangled with forces much larger than themselves, pushed Jake into a corner, and he knew a choice lay before him. As they scoured the eerie landscape, memories flashed. His time in the service, the sacrifices endured, the lives he fought to save. This wasn't just a search for a dog anymore. It was a reckoning with his past and present. The undeniable truth settled like a rock in his stomach. He had to rise above his own failures if he was going to be a protector again. Retraining his focus, Jake's resolve hardened. One way or another, they needed to confront the looming corporation threatening the very foundation of Maplewood, a bittersweet echo of his own childhood. "Do you think we'll find him?" Ethan's small voice pulled Jake from the brink of pessimism, reminding him of the fragile hope they were carrying. Jake crouched down, meeting the boy's gaze. "I promise. We'll do everything we can. We're not giving up, Ethan. Not now." Just as those words escaped his mouth, a distant bark piqued their attention, slicing through the air like a siren. Jake's heart leaped, the sound filling an aching void in his chest, igniting that long, smothered flame of purpose. They followed the sound, heartbeats racing in tandem until they found themselves at the edge of a shadowy alley. The atmosphere shifted. Something felt dangerous, wrong. Tension coiled within him as he spun around, scanning the dim edges of the alley for potential threats. The darkness was alive with the promise of danger, flickering with deeper secrets. What if it wasn't just Max they stumbled upon? "Ethan, stay close." Jake's voice held an edge of authority that he fought to maintain, emboldened by the pull of instinct. They moved cautiously along the alley, where discarded items piled high, vestiges of a forgotten relevance. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, and the realization washed over Jake. The man was linked to the very corporation they suspected of wrongdoing, eyes glinting with dangerous knowledge. In that instant, Jake's military training kicked in. The boy needed him. He couldn't fail again. Time to face the past I ran from, Jake thought as adrenaline coursed through him, aware of the choice that loomed ahead. The opportunity to reclaim not just the boy's trust, but his own worthiness to protect what truly mattered. With a deep breath, he stepped forward. The battle for more than just a lost dog was on the verge of igniting, a chance to challenge the very corruption that sought to consume them all. The moment marked the beginning of a confrontation, not just against a corporation but against the shadows of his own insecurities. Would he seize the moment or watch it slip away? As the man grinned, Jake prepared to confront the shadows emerging from the past, his heart hammering with the urgent need to reveal the truth. Jake's pulse quickened as he stood, muscles tense, facing the man cloaked in shadows. Ethan remained close at his side, the boy's eyes reflecting a mix of fear and hope that Jake felt all too deeply. He recognized the figure before him, a lackey associated with the corporate giant methodically swallowing up the town. The air thickened with an unspoken challenge, and Jake grappled with the dual nature of this confrontation, the necessity of revealing the truth while battling the suffocating tendrils of his own self-doubt. As the man stepped into the light, a sinister grin revealed an unsettling confidence. "Looking for something, Marine?" The taunt dripped with derision, provoking an instinctual urge to retaliate. Yet Jake's military training pulled him back from the brink of impulsive aggression. In this moment, it was crucial to think strategically, to assess the threat carefully. With a nod toward Ethan, Jake communicated a silent promise to protect the boy, his own insecurities momentarily eclipsed by the urgent need to focus on their task. "Yeah, we're looking for Max," Jake replied evenly, his voice low yet steady. The challenge echoed in the alley, tinged with an authority that surprised him. "And we're going to find him." The man chuckled, eyes narrowing. "You really think you can stick your nose where it doesn't belong? Corporate oversight isn't something a washed-up soldier can just ignore." There was a calculated malice in his tone, one that struck a nerve. It reminded Jake of the moments when he felt unworthy of his past glories, broken and discarded like the orphaned items strewn around them. Jake inhaled sharply, the taste of regret lingering on his tongue. That part of his life had morphed into a toxic memory, one he had longed to escape. Now, however, it surged forth, not as a weight on his shoulders, but as driving force igniting his courage. "I'm not washed up," he countered, allowing anger to lend him strength rather than fuel his fears. "I'm here because people matter, even dogs." A flicker of uncertainty crossed the man's face, and Jake seized the moment. "I know what this corporation is doing to this town. I know about the deals made in the dark, and I'm not going to let it happen again." Each word forward felt like stepping onto solid ground, reclaiming a firm connection to his purpose. His voice gained momentum with every syllable he spoke, a decisive force against the shadows surrounding him. Ethan's small hand grasped Jake's arm, grounding him even further. In that moment, the boy's trust rekindled something deep within Jake, a sense of responsibility rooted in his core. The past didn't define him. It was merely a chapter in his life, one that had brought him here to protect someone who believed in him. The man's expression shifted, uncertainty replaced by irritation. "You don't know what you're up against. Leave while you still can." The casual warning felt rehearsed, designed to intimidate, but it only fueled Jake's resolve. He had spent too long hiding behind the failures of yesterday. Now was the time to confront both his demons and the corruption that threatened those he cared about. "Give us Max and we can walk away," he proposed, the defiance gleaming in his eyes. It was no longer just about the lost dog, it was a declaration of war against complacency. Jake was prepared to do whatever it took to dismantle the lies that had haunted Maplewood. A tense silence stretched between them, the tension crackling like electricity. The man seemed to weigh his options, calculating the repercussions of this encounter. Just as he opened his mouth, ready to retaliate, the shrill sound of a siren echoed in the distance, slicing through the uncertainty of the moment. Jake's heart raced. Could this be the opportunity he had been waiting for? The weight of the moment pressed heavily on his shoulders, elevated by the fragility of hope surrounding them. Jake had one chance to dismantle the fear holding him back. Every instinct urged him forward. He would refuse to allow shadows to dictate his life. Would he take down the corporation's puppet or retreat once more? The crossroads lay before him, and only one path would lead them closer to the truth, toward Max. With resolve sparking in his chest, Jake steadied himself. It was time to make his decision. The siren grew louder, blending with Jake's racing heartbeat as he faced the man before him, a tangible representation of everything he had fought against. The sound of hope rising within him clashed violently with the oppressive atmosphere of the alley. In this moment of turmoil, he felt the full weight of what was at stake. Not just the life of a dog, but the future of Maplewood, and perhaps his own redemption. The lackey's expression shifted from malicious confidence to a fleeting expression of concern as he evaluated Jake's determination. This was no longer just about intimidation. It was about power dynamics. Jake had the upper hand. For a brief moment, he held the potential to expose the truth. Ethan gripped Jake's arm tighter, his tiny fingernails pressing into Jake's skin, a reminder of the boy's vulnerability. This was bigger than Jake's personal struggle. It was about safeguarding innocence. "I'm ready," Jake thought, steeling himself against the doubt that threatened to creep back in. It struck him then. This standoff was not a mere confrontation. It was a defining moment, a pivotal point in his evolution not just as a man, but as a protector. He needed to channel the weight of his past as a Marine, transformed into a shield for those who depended on him now. He prepared to speak, to guide the conversation further. "You can tell your employers that it's time to come clean. We know about the illegal dealings, the manipulation of this town. It's not just business, it's bullying, and I won't sit back and watch it happen." The lackey's facade slipped, revealing a flicker of apprehension. Jake noticed it. A brief chance for negotiation, a window of opportunity. He decided to push further, wresting control of the narrative from his opponent. "Let's make this easy. You can walk away, and I guarantee I won't pursue any further action against you. Help us find Max, and I'll consider this a closed chapter." The man hesitated, obviously weighing the potential fallout against the risk of losing his position in the corporate hierarchy. Jake's heart pounded as he processed the interplay of power. This was no longer about physical prowess. It was about wielding the truth as a weapon. This recognition shifted something deep within him, a realization that he could stand as a formidable agent of change. Before the lackey could respond, Jake sensed a movement behind him. He turned and a pair of officers appeared at the mouth of the alley, their expressions curious but serious. The siren they had heard was a call for backup, and suddenly the stakes heightened further. What had once been a tense verbal exchange now diverged into a potential escape from accountability for the man confronting him. In the fraught silence, Jake felt a surge of foresight. I can't let him slip away. This was a moment of truth. He could either let this opportunity pass or seize it and potentially expose the greater corruption at hand. The gravity of impending action anchored his resolve. He couldn't falter, not when the lives of so many hung in the balance. Why don't we give the cops a show? Jake suggested, the confidence in his voice an exhilarating contrast to the apprehension welling within. If he was going to expose the truth, he might as well add some heat to the moment. Let them see just what we've discovered about your operations here. The lackey's expression darkened, and Jake could sense the power shifting subtly. He took a step forward, unswayed by the creeping trepidation. This is your chance to save yourself. Don't make it be your last mistake. The alley grew silent, the tension thickening as they waited for a reaction. Would the lackey crumble under the pressure, or would he mount a defense, dragging Jake deeper into a corporate web of deceit? The answer would not only shape their immediate future, but define Jake's commitment to his new path of courageous accountability. Jake was ready. He was done running from the past, and the possibility of facing the truth about those who held power over others sparked a fierce light within him. Now, it was time to forge ahead and discover where this confrontation would lead him, both in unraveling the visible threat and uncovering the hidden pieces of himself he had yet to acknowledge. As the sirens blared, signaling the arrival of the authorities, Jake braced himself. A blaze of determination ignited in his chest. The time had come to face the shadows, but the outcome remained uncertain. Would he shatter the grip of corporate tyranny, or would he fall victim to it? With a deep breath, he readied himself for whatever storm was about to unfold. Jake felt the prickle of anticipation as the police officers stepped forward, their presence amplifying the stakes. He couldn't shake the tightening grip of uncertainty, yet a newfound resolve surged through him, forged from the crucible of his experiences, both as a soldier and a guardian. He needed to use this moment effectively. The potential breakthrough depended on his next move. The lackey's face twisted in indignation, but Jake recognized the flicker of doubt that danced in his eyes. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, sharpening his instincts. You've got nothing to lose by telling us what you know, Jake pressed, his voice steady and firm. This was a test not just of the lackey's integrity, but also of Jake's ability to assert his authority, his status as a protector emerging front and center. Behind him, Ethan's small hand tugged at Jake's jacket, an anchor against the storm of uncertainty. What if they don't believe you? The boy whispered, his voice barely audible over the sirens. Jake knelt to meet Ethan's eye, reflecting the same determination brewing within him. They will believe us. We have the truth on our side. He turned back to the lackey, confidence whipping away the last vestiges of doubt. I can guarantee that if you cooperate, the outcome will be better for you than if you don't. The officers bore witness but remained silent, gauging the tension. One of them, a woman with an authoritative air, crossed her arms, taking in the standoff. Her eyes flitted between Jake and the lackey, clearly assessing which side would break first. As seconds dragged into eternity, the possibility of the lackey relenting hung in the air like a dense fog. Jake knew he had to push just a bit harder. You're in a web deeper than you think, he added, knowing how critical this revelation could be. We have evidence, your employer's operations. People like you don't just choose sides, they choose survival. The lackey's facade cracked further, revealing what felt like layers of conceit and fear intertwined. Jake leaned into it. Do you want to end up being a pawn in a game that will swallow you whole? Or do you want to be the one who speaks up and chooses a new path? In the storm of this verbal chess match, Jake could feel his past regrets bubbling to the surface, But for the first time, he didn't feel shackled by them. Instead, he summoned those experiences. They transformed from weights around his ankles into tools of persuasion. Every life he'd saved as a Marine, every vulnerable time he'd shielded a fellow soldier, came rushing back. Every ounce of courage he'd exhibited was now drawing strength from him rather than pulling him down. Finally, the lackey faltered. "What do you know?" he demanded defiantly, yet with an edge of desperation. Jake pressed forward, sensing he was close to breaking the man's resolve. "I know that your employers are into more than just shady business. It's worse. We can expose them. But first, help us find Max and then—" Before he could finish, the lackey spat onto the ground, a final act of defiance. "You think I'll give them up? You don't know who you're messing with." A chill settled in Jake's gut, revealing the depth of the prison the lackey perceived himself to be in. A prison built on fear and loyalty to an invisible monster. Yet within that moment, Jake also recognized something. This wasn't just about being a hero or a Marine anymore. This was about revealing the cracks within the foundations of fear, about shattering that which bound the lackey to silence. "No, but I know how to fight back." Jake's voice resonated with certainty, reinforcing his strategy, his decision to forge alliances even with those who seemed irreparably lost to their loyalties. The officers moved in closer, while the lackey's expression turned from hostility to contemplation, uncertainty weaving itself into the fabric of his bravado. Jake could see the chinks in his armor, as if they were laying bare secrets that had always defined him. "Last chance," Jake warned softly. "Help us, and let's rewrite the rules of this game together." As the sirens quieted, a void of silence enveloped the scene, heavy with potential. Jake held his breath, waiting for the lackey's response that could change everything. He had stepped fully into the role he was meant to play. But would he emerge victorious? Or would the darkness continue to loom over Maplewood? The air crackled with tension, anticipation building in his chest like a coiled spring, ready to unleash either truth or further chaos. The lackey stared at him, weighing his options on an invisible scale. Would he give in? Or would he drag them all deeper into the abyss of intimidation? "Your move," Jake said, the stakes higher than ever. As the moment hung perilously in the air, he realized that the choices made here would ripple far beyond the alleyway, mapping out the next chapter of his life. All eyes were on the lackey, who stood in a tense standoff, a mere few feet away from Jake and the police officers. The whispers of the street faded into an oppressive silence, allowing the weight of their words to reverberate through the air. Jake's heart raced, surging with a cocktail of hope and anxiety. The power dynamics were shifting, and he had to seize this fledgling momentum, leverage it into a full-blown revelation. The lackey's pupils darted, searching for an escape from the allegorical chessboard they were all playing on. "What do you want from me?" he finally croaked, his bravado diminishing like smoke dissipating in the wind. Jake felt a flicker of triumph surge within him. "We want the truth about Max. Nothing more." His voice rang with a sincerity he hadn't fully acknowledged until that moment. Each word felt heavier with purpose, a reflection of the deep bond he had formed with Ethan and the urgency to protect the innocent from a sinister web of danger. But still, Jake watched the lackey closely, deciphering each micro-expression. Beneath the facade of defiance, he could see the uncertainty clawing at the lackey's insides, and Jake began crafting a strategy, not to shock or intimidate, but to engage and empower. "You're scared," Jake said softly, as if the rest of the world had faded away. "You don't want to be caught in the crossfire, but I can help you." It was a revealing moment of clarity for both men, a threshold. Jake could see that fear could lead to compliance, which could lead to freedom. Not just for the lackey, but perhaps for himself, too. The officers shifted, murmuring among themselves, but Jake held his gaze steady on the lackey. "I've been in your shoes. When you're surrounded by people who manipulate and control, it feels suffocating. But you have a choice, and it starts with stepping into the light." The lackey hesitated, the doubt palpable. "And then what?" "They'll kill me, or you'll finally take control of your life. You'd be surprised how many allies you have when you break free. Let's expose these people, show everyone the truth." Jake's words weaved into the lackey's psyche, the proposition like a lifebuoy thrown into turbulent waters. Now, he waited, letting the silence linger again as the lackey's mind churned with possibilities. Would he perish in the clutches of fear? Or would he grasp the chance Jake had placed before him? Every second felt monumental as Jake's past had taught him that roots of stillness often birthed transformative revelations. Ethan squeezed Jake's jacket tighter, sensing the tension building. "What's happening?" the boy asked. The concern laced in his voice brought Jake back to the urgency of their mission. He wasn't just protecting his past, but forging a future for the young boy standing beside him. "This man has a choice, Ethan," Jake replied, casting a reassuring smile at the boy. "He's going to do what's right. He might be scared, but sometimes standing tall in uncertainty is the bravest act." As the weight of Jake's words settled, the air shimmered with new possibilities. The lackey faltered, caught between the dark abyss of loyalty and the dizzying heights of a hopeful escape. Suddenly, a myriad of sirens blared anew a block away as the police prepared to converge. The last barrier of secrecy threatened to thrum with danger once more. Sensing time slipping, Jake leaned in. "This is it. Are you ready to choose freedom?" Jake watched the transformation take place, with so many pieces teetering at that precipice of truth. Would the lackey step forward as a defector, or would fear extinguish the flicker of hope before it could ignite the way forward? The sirens grew louder, resonating like the pounding of his heart. Would the choice made here today lead to liberation? Each heartbeat pulsed with the answer in the making. Jake held his breath, adrenaline coursing through him as the moment of truth loomed just ahead, ready to shatter the darkness once and for all. The lackey's eyes shifted, the weight of Jake's challenge settling heavily upon him. The sirens screamed closer, and time seemed to warp. Jake steeled himself, determined to meet this fragile moment with composure. Every instinct urged him to push harder, but he chose to hold space instead, allowing the lackey to process the enormity of his decision. "Freedom," the lackey whispered, almost as if the word were foreign to him. It was a delicate thread, and Jake felt its significance. He could sense an inflection point, one that might not just alter the trajectory of their confrontation, but also shape the man struggling to define his identity. Jake took a step closer, careful not to invade the lackey's space. "You deserve that chance. You may not see it now, but speaking up could save your life. You're not alone anymore." Each statement mental-banded with clarity. Jake recognized that his journey mirrored the lackey's. They were both dancing on the edge of fear, one a puppet precariously tied to the darkness, while the other yearned to break free. Ethan, still clenching Jake's jacket, watched with wide eyes, an embodiment of fragile hope, reminding Jake of the stakes. This was bigger than just their lives. It was about building a future free of the shadows that had haunted him for too long. Would this man, who embodied the possibility for redemption, not only for himself but for Jake's mission, grasp the opportunity before him? The lackey's breath came fast and ragged, revealing an internal battlefield. "What if they don't believe me?" His voice trembled, the bravado all but extinguished. Doubt laced his tone, and it struck Jake deep. He'd fought against these very monsters of disbelief himself. "They will," Jake asserted, channeling every ounce of conviction he possessed. "People want the truth. They crave it. They'll rally behind you, but only if you're brave enough to step forward." Each word became a lifeline, a way to resonate with the humanity buried beneath the lackey's hardened exterior. But Jake faced another personal challenge, understanding that convincing the lackey to defect was as much a reflection of his own choices as it was an opportunity for the lackey. He could feel tensions regarding trust, the specter of betrayal looming over them both. What had he really done to earn that trust when his own past was riddled with unanswered questions? The sirens were almost upon them now, a cacophony blending desperation with urgency. "You're at a crossroads. This is your moment," Jake pressed, punctuating each word with intention. "What's it going to be?" The lackey's facade continued to crack under the mounting pressure. Suddenly, he reached up, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, an outward manifestation of his internal chaos. Jake sensed a transformation attempting to burst free, one that could very well shift the balance for all of them. Behind them, a directive voice cut through the tension, a commanding officer arriving with his team. The air filled with a sense of impending fate. Jake felt adrenaline wash over him, racing through his thoughts. He needed to act, needed the lackey to act, before time completely slipped through his fingers. What if I betray them? The lackey's question sliced through the haze, exposing raw vulnerability beneath the bravado. Jake seized this moment, recognizing it as essential, not just for the lackey, but for himself. Then know this. Every act of courage is a betrayal of fear. You can choose to be a hero today, just like I'm trying to be for Ethan. You can rewrite your story. Jake's voice hardened with resolution, his determination shining through as he held firm. For a fleeting moment, Jake caught the flicker of resolve in the lackey's eyes, but before anything materialized, an officer barked a command, slicing through the fragile veil of possibility. Step away from the suspect, now! Both Jake and the lackey turned sharply towards the direction of the command. The moment of truth was inching closer, but which way would the scales tip? Would the lackey step into the light or retreat into darkness? As the weight of the command loomed, Jake's heart pounded again, hotter and stronger than before. Time was spiraling out of control. Would the lackey stand firm and act decisively, or would fear clench the reins once more, leaving them all ensnared in futility? The choice hung in the air, poised for eruption, teetering on the brink of irrevocable fate as sirens blared, drawing near like a storm. The command echoed, a metal blade slicing through the fragile tension between Jake and the lackey. The sound pulled them both sharply back to reality. The officer's presence was an undeniable signal that time was running out. Jake's instincts flared. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, each second a countdown marked by the sirens growing louder in the distance. "Listen to me," Jake urged, his voice lowering, almost intimate as he leaned closer. "Whatever happens next, you have to own this moment. Don't let fear win." His own past echoed through his mind, the moments he'd let fear dictate his actions. He wasn't going to let that happen again, not with the stakes this high. The lackey's eyes darted back and forth between Jake and the advancing officers. Jake saw the man's internal all-out war, the struggle between a life sinking with shadows and the faint shimmer of what could be. It was a struggle Jake knew all too well. He had stood at this intersection himself and had been immobilized by the weight of indecision. What if they're wrong about me? The doubt returned to the lackey's voice, a tremor that sent vibrations of empathy through Jake. Here was a man on the brink of transformation, yet teetering precariously on the edge of self-doubt. "They might be, but you don't have to be that person anymore," Jake countered, desperation curling in his tone. "You can create a new identity. You can step into the light and let the world see you for who you truly are." Ethan, still clinging to Jake, shifted nervously. The profound silence of anticipation enveloped them all. Jake glanced at Ethan, his young and hopeful face tinged with fear, but also determination. The boy's palpable presence reminded Jake of his responsibility, not just to save himself, but to carve out a path forward for them all. The lackey hesitated, the words piercing through the layers of his uncertainty. The sirens crescendoed, mingling with his labored breathing, creating a symphony of chaos. But within that chaos was also clarity. Jake could almost see the gears changing in the lackey's mind, a nascent resolve fighting against the shackles of a lifetime defined by servitude. "They will view you as a traitor," Jake whispered, edging closer as if to fortify the lackey's new thought patterns. "But what's worse, a fake betrayal or living a lie? You can no longer be a pawn. This is your moment. You owe it to yourself." Suddenly, the weight of the commanding officer's approach bore down on them, and every instinct screamed for action. Would the lackey step forward or retreat into proverbial darkness? Jake readied himself mentally, prepared to push the man into a newfound purpose, but at what cost to himself if he failed? The lackey's breath quickened, eyes darting back to the officers. Jake felt the urgency coiling within him. The path to redemption stood in stark contrast to bravery, a dichotomy so vividly laid out before them. He needed to break through this hesitation, to reach him before the chance was snatched away. Taking a bold step forward, Jake lowered his tone further, almost conspiratorial. It's now or never. If you hold on to fear, that weight will crush you. But if you step into the truth, it can lift you higher than you ever imagined. Caught in the tumult of emotions, the lackey's gaze flickered with a momentary glimmer of understanding. Jake felt hope burgeon within him, like a flickering flame threatening to ignite. But just as the lackey opened his mouth, poised to speak, the squad of officers encroached upon their space, and Jake knew that the moment was slipping away, hanging in a liminal space where clarity met chaos, time lost equilibrium. Would a decision materialize before the darkness reclaimed its hold? Or would the lackey's fate parallel Jake's own turbulent past, leaving them all in the shadows? Jake's pulse quickened, sensing the imminent turning point tilting ever closer to a reckoning he could not yet grasp. In that breathless second, sanity and chaos hung tangled in the air, and everything balanced on a precipice of choice. "Make a decision," Jake shouted, desperation fueling his words. But what he didn't know was that both their fates were about to unfold in ways neither of them could anticipate. The moment of truth hadn't just arrived, it was about to explode. The lackey's eyes widened, a flash as if he were catching a glimpse of his future, yet uncertainty still chained him. He could step into a new identity or remain shackled to his past. Jake felt the surge of urgency coursing through his veins. Time wasn't merely slipping away, it was hurtling into an abyss. And with it, the opportunity for change. Jake shifted his weight, instinctively blocking the officer's path. He had to create a pathway, not only for the lackey but also for Ethan, who was still listening intently, a silent observer filled with a mix of hope and fear. The tension in the air hummed, and Jake could practically taste the conflict, thick with the sweat of anxiety. "You have to decide to fight for yourself," Jake insisted, leaning in just a fraction closer. He could feel the heat radiating off the lackey. "Do you want to be the man they expect, or the man you want to be?" The lackey shook his head, frustration pooling in his eyes. "It's not that simple. What if I fail? What if I lose everything?" Jake felt his own past echo in those words, each syllable a haunting reminder of his own failures, the moments he had faltered when he should have stood firm. "But you have the chance to become something new," he pressed. "The fear of failing only holds you back from realizing your true potential. You can't let what others think define you." The sirens grew louder, a relentless reminder that they were running out of time. Every officer's footstep brought them closer to a resolution, a confrontation that could lead either to redemption or tragedy. Jake could see the war waging behind the lackey's eyes, a battle between loyalty to a shadowy existence and the bright possibility of liberation. "Look at Ethan," Jake implored. "He believes in you. You have the power to change his life too." Awareness flickered in the lackey's gaze as he turned his attention to Ethan, who stood resolute, determination etched across his youthful face. It was a moment of reflection, the realization that the choices one made could ripple outward, transcending personal fears to impact others significantly. Summoning every ounce of strength he had left, the lackey's expression morphed. Jake watched a shift, the flicker of bravery replacing hesitation, the slow dawning of a possibility that had long been buried. "I don't want to be a pawn anymore," the lackey whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "I want to be free." With that spark ignited, the moment felt electric. Jake could sense the tide shifting, yet it wasn't just about the lackey, it was about his own growth. In urging another to embrace their potential, he was facing his own unacknowledged fears. The terror of being exposed, the risk of vulnerability. But the officers were upon them now, eyes narrowed and voices demanding compliance. The cadence of the moment had shifted, drawing them into a new realm of urgency and choice, one where fear coiled tightly around their throats. Instinct kicked in, prompting Jake to act. "Follow me," he shouted, breaking the tension. It was a command layered with the weight of a gamble. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with risks, yet it was a call to action that he knew could mean the difference between stagnation and possibility. With that, Jake took his first decisive step forward, pulling the lackey along as adrenaline surged through him. He wasn't just battling for the lackey's freedom, he was also clawing his way out from the suffocating grasp of his own past. Would the lackey and Ethan follow him into the unknown, or would hesitation unleash the darkness once more? With every heartbeat reverberating in his chest, Jake knew he couldn't turn back now. The moment of truth had arrived, and as they stumbled into the chaos ahead, he realized that sometimes growth meant standing at the very edge, ready to dive into the uncertainty below. What lay ahead in this tumultuous journey of self-discovery? A confrontation loomed, and with it, revelations that could shatter their fragile alliance. Would they emerge transformed, or would traditional roles swallow them whole? As Jake stepped forward, the officers closed in, but he could feel the newfound determination of the lackey at his side. "Let's expose them," he urged, his voice steady, fueling the courage inside the once timid man. The lackey drew a breath, resolve igniting like a match struck in the dark. "You're right. I'll help you." The words tumbled out, powerful and raw, breaking the chains of his silence. In that moment of clarity forged from risk, and the raw vulnerability of hope, Jake saw the light of redemption flicker within the lackey's eyes. "No more running," Jake stated firmly, stepping firmly into a role he had long evaded. The protector, the warrior reborn, not just as a Marine, but as someone ready to confront the shadows of betrayal that had haunted his life for far too long. He felt Ethan's hand grip his arm tighter, a testament to trust and fear entwined. This boy had sparked something in him, igniting a lifelong commitment to protecting those who needed shelter from the storm. The police officers advanced with authority, yet Jake stood tall, positioning himself as a barrier between truth and deceit, between punishment and freedom. "Officers, we have vital information regarding corporate misconduct in this town." The declaration hung in the air, electric and potent. The officers paused, their eyes shifting to the lackey as if seeking his confirmation. The moment of truth hung like a pendulum, swinging precariously as the officers assessed the palpable tension. Jake sensed the urgency of their enmeshed fates, the lackey's chance to break free, Ethan's desperate need for protection, and his own fight for redemption. A commanding figure stepped forward, commanding the onlookers' attention. "What do you know?" she demanded, her voice piercing through the surrounding chaos like a knife. "Everything," Jake asserted, his voice unwavering, emboldened by the gravity of the moment. "This corporation is manipulating properties, seeking to destroy half this town, all for profit. We know about illegal dealings." He gestured to the lackey. "He's ready to talk." The officers exchanged incredulous glances, an air of caution mingling with skepticism. Jake held his breath, realizing they were not just fighting for their safety, they were dismantling a web of deceit that had tangled their lives long enough. The lackey stepped forward, his shoulders now squared, channeling the bravery that had simmered beneath the surface. I know about the deals," he confessed, the weight of his truth pressing outward. "They're out to secure the properties at any cost. I can give you names, evidence, but I fear for my safety." The commanding officer's expression softened, recognizing the blend of fear and bravery in the man's admission. "You'll be protected, but you need to cooperate fully." Jake felt the release of tension in his chest. A chunk of his past began to liberate itself. The shadows of self-doubt he had wrestled with began to dissipate, replaced by a profound clarity. He had confronted the demons. He'd stood his ground to protect not just Ethan, but the very fabric of what Maplewood could be. As the alley buzzed with interactions, the officers circled around the trio, ready to document the breakthrough. The importance of this moment, the gravity of the transformation rang loud. The lackey's choice to step into the light reshaped their lives. Jake watched a smile spread across Ethan's face, a mixture of hope and joy as he witnessed the birth of a new narrative. A narrative no longer bound by fear, but driven by courage. The boy had inspired this metamorphosis. He had not just sought help, but inadvertently reignited the flickering flame of idealism within Jake. And with that, a stark realization crystallized in Jake's mind. "This is just the beginning," he murmured to himself, channeling a sense of possibility. As the officers took the lackey away to discuss the extant evidence, Jake felt the remnants of his past fleeting like fog under the sun. He had not just accomplished a mission, he had conquered the oppressive beliefs that had shrouded him. In finding Max, saving Ethan, and confronting the pervasive fear, he had redefined his own identity as a protector. It was no longer about being a washed-up Marine. He had stood resolute, reclaiming his purpose in Maplewood. He had become not just a seeker of truth, but the ex-Marine he was meant to be, a defender of the innocent, a custodian of justice. As he gathered himself in this moment of triumph, he felt the resolve solidifying inside him, grounded in newfound competence. Jake Turner wasn't just alive, he was thriving, reborn to fight another day, filled with the awareness that sometimes one act of courage could shift the world. Reflecting on the enormous task that lay ahead to mend the fractures of his town, he exhaled deeply, eyes set forward. This rebirth was only the start. A mission to restore integrity and courage had just begun. This was his legacy, a commitment to guide others from darkness into light. Jake smiled, feeling freedom flood over him like a wave as he turned away from the alley and back into the world that could finally start to turn right again. Now, as you reflect on this incredible journey, remember, it's time for you to take action in your life. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. This is the moment. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion, because together, we can inspire more people to overcome their struggles. Don't wait, even one more second. Take action now, and join us in crafting a narrative of empowerment.